This is October 17th, OLCC Commission meeting. Adam, can you read the roll, please?
Commissioner Chowry?
He's absent today, so he's got a family emergency.
Commissioner Curran?
Here.
Commissioner Floyd?
Here.
Commissioner Glenn? Commissioner Japon Porter? Commissioner Hayes?
Here.
Commissioner Miletus? Commissioner Warren?
Here.
Chair Doherty?
Here. Very good. And I would entertain a motion for approval of the September 26, 24 Commission meeting minutes.
Chair,
Commissioner?
I move to approve the September 26, 2024 Commission meeting minutes as written. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? You take the roll, please.
Commissioner Curran?
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd?
Yes.
Commissioner Japon Porter?
Yes.
Commissioner Hayes?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
Yes.
Chair Doherty?
Yes. Thank you. The motion carries. I'm going to hear Melanie, if you want to come up and give us, tell us about the penalty schedule.
Yes.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Morning. Morning, Chair. Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Morning, good morning.
Have to make sure I'm panning here because there's people two in the middle. Not looking at anybody.
Just look in the middle and use your.
I know, right? So I'm the Director of Administrative Hearings Division, here to give you guys some information about administrative penalties. So really looking at what we can do once violations have either been proven or they've accepted responsibility, what are the options available for OLCC in terms of administrative penalties. Next slide. Give me a little overview, kind of lay the land. Reports are issued from our compliance team, both marijuana and alcohol. They come over to the Administrative Hearings Division. Case presenters then review those reports in AHD and issue notices once they determine there's enough evidence for a violation. So those notices include the facts of the violation, what we're saying that they did, which statute or rule they violated and how, and then also the associated penalty with that. So in that notice, it will tell them this is a notice of cancellation, this is a notice of suspension or civil penalty. And it lays out exactly what each violation penalty is and then the total amount. And so licensees and permittees have the right, obviously, to contest the violation before a penalty is issued. So we cannot issue a penalty, obviously, until we have a resolution on the case. They can go to a contested case hearing, they can default, or they can do a settlement with the commission. How we determine a penalty is each violation has an associated category with it. It's 1 through 5. 1 is the most serious, 5 is the least serious. And then each category then has an associated penalty with it, that those penalties are in a schedule that's in our administrative rules. And I'll show that later on in the presentation. We also look at aggravation and mitigation for each case that can increase or decrease the penalty. Overall, though, our goal is to be fair and equitable for all licensees and permittees when issuing not only violations, but also the penalties that they receive. Next slide. I'm going to go through alcohol first and then look at marijuana. You'll see that both are pretty similar. First, I'm going to look at the overall statutory consideration. So all of this is in ORS 471. I put the statutory sites there for reference if you want to look at any of those, but where this is coming from. So this first gives us our available, what we can issue for any of our alcohol licensees or permittees, what penalties we can issue to them. And just remember here too, this is for any people who have an active license. We can only issue penalties if they currently have a license with us or currently have a permit with us. On the licensee side, we can cancel, suspend, restrict, require mandatory training, or impose a civil penalty in lieu of or in addition to a suspension. It's the same for the permittees. We can revoke the permit, suspend it, or impose the civil penalties in lieu of or in addition to a suspension. Also in 471322 is where we get the amounts of that
Can
can,
I hold
yeah,
you for 1
sure.
second? Excuse me for interrupting here. With the licensees, you can cancel, suspend, restrict, or require mandatory training. Can that require for mandatory training can that be in lieu of a penalty or?
It's a type of, it can be
type
part of a penalty, yeah.
Part of the penalty, okay. So you could say, we're gonna require mandatory training, we're not gonna fine you, but can we do that?
Yes,
Okay. And then with the permittees, can we say that you got to go through more training, or that doesn't seem to be available here?
not really. It's really, you know, it's more about the restriction of the suspension or opposing civil penalty.
Okay, thank you.
But, sorry, I thought you were bringing up, but I think it's also important to educate people on what happens with someone who isn't a licensee or permitting,
And what, can you,
as far as penalties.
Like if they don't have a
Yeah.
valid service
Oh.
permit, we don't have a grasp.
Yeah,
on-
let everyone know what happens in that.
sure, so if someone does not have a service permit, because a lot of the, right, if somebody works at an O licensee, so you're in your 7-Elevens, those people who are serving or closed containers of alcohol, they don't need a service permit to to work at that job. So if they would not be getting a penalty from us because we don't have jurisdiction over them.
But who will, as far as, who has jurisdiction and what happens?
If the owner, if something happens at a 7-Eleven, can we penalize the owner of the 7-Eleven?
We would penalize the, yeah, so
Yeah.
the licensee then, so if they
The
sell to
licensee,
a
yeah.
minor, a minor decoy comes in
Gotcha.
and they do a sale, the licensee receives the penalty there.
And the worker receives no penalty from any organization or any.
We don't have the statutory authority over them.
I guess I'm trying to get at, so is that a police issue?
I mean, police could come in,
But they
right, an
don't.
issue, but that would be a crime then versus just a civil penalty.
Got it.
And then going through what we can issue in terms of civil penalties, for licensees, the limit there is $100 up to $5,000. There is a caveat there that's for breweries, wholesale wineries, wholesale malt beverage, direct shipper permit, or direct to retail permit or certificate of approval. It's a little bit of a caveat. It's similar, but in suspending those licenses, OLCC may further impose a civil penalty not to exceed $5,000, or OLCC can impose civil penalties without suspending at all. But they still have the $5,000 limit. Our permittees, though, the range there is $25 to $500. So that means for licensees, we can't charge over $5,000 per violation, and for permittees, more than $500.
Do you know what the average is for permittees?
So it depends, when we'll get to, I think it'll be easier when we get to the penalty schedule, because then we can go over what it is for each violation. And then I can give you kind of a better number for that.
Okay, thank you.
And then if a license or permit is suspended for 30 days or less, OLCC may impose a civil penalty in lieu of the suspension. So really it's tied, the civil penalty is tied to the suspension. Once we issue that suspension, we can do a civil penalty in lieu of it. And then once that civil penalty is paid, the OLCC shall cancel that suspension. Next slide. So here's looking at our alcohol rules. So that was the statute, right? Here's our OARs, our rules. Our rules also state that we can allow the licensee or the permittee the option of serving a suspension or paying the civil penalty. We can also impose a suspension or civil penalty or both. So here, a lot of times what you'll see is we will allow the parties that's in our penalty schedule, we will allow a licensee or a permittee to have the option, do they want to serve a suspension or do they want to pay a civil penalty? That's for most of our violations. And knowing our rule, our guidepost of we can't do more than 5,000, we have to do at least nothing less than 100. Here is how we calculate our penalties. So the licensees, it's done per day. So we look at the number of days in the suspension and then multiply that. So if it's a 30-day suspension, 30 times 165, that would be the penalty for a licensee. If it's a 10-day suspension, 10 days times 165, that's the amount of the penalty. An exception there is liquor liability insurance violations. We have a special rule that deals with that. They have a little bit different penalty amounts for that violation. And then our service permittees is $25 per day. So again, 10-day suspension, 10 times 25, that's the civil penalty amount that they receive and helps us stay within those guidelines of not going over $500 or $5,000. We do have another exception here. Obviously, there's always exceptions to the rules. For category 2Bs, which is our MDO violations, that is a little bit higher. So licensees on the alcohol side, it's $250 per days of suspension, and it's $35 for permittees. And our, when we look at aggravation and mitigation, so what we do first is look at, okay, here's your base penalty amount. And then if we find a mitigating or aggravating or multiple mitigating or aggravating circumstances, we can assess a greater penalty or a lesser penalty. Usually that's taking off on the alcohol side. It is adding days of suspension or taking away days of suspension, usually 2 per. And it can be up to and including cancellation though. So we could have somebody who has the cancelable events, but they have enough mitigation that we decide to mitigate them down from cancellation to some kind of a suspension or civil penalty. We may also, it states in rule that we can decrease or increase a sanction to prevent inequity or take into account particular circumstances of each case. There are a list in rule of what are mitigating circumstances and what are aggravating circumstances for alcohol, but it also is a non-exclusive list as well. Next slide. Here's those categories that I was talking about. So every time we charge a violation, it has to fit into one of these categories. And these are defined in rule. It's that same OAR where it lists what we would consider to be a category 1 all the way down to category 5 violation. And so that's how, whatever is the statutory violation or the violation in rule, that's how we decide which category it goes into based on the description there. So for example, a category 1 violation in alcohol would be, I have some examples here, I wrote them down. So, operating other than your license permits is a category 1 violation. It's very serious, make you ineligible for a license. Category 2 would be somebody who is on duty, but they're under the influence of alcohol, whereas a category 3 is somebody who's drinking on duty, and all the way down from there. Next slide.
Drinking on duty, you said cat 1?
Cat 3.
Cat 3.
And intoxicated on duty is a category 2.
Okay.
So here is our that penalty schedule I was referring to. This is in a rule. It's an exhibit there. So this is how we go and look. We go and decide what their penalty they're going to receive. And you see at the top, it's a grid. It says 1 violation within, or 2 within a 2-year period. So everything is considered within that 2-year period. So it's not the life of a license, right? We're only looking at the 2-year period from if we go up higher on the grid. As you can see, right, at category 1, the first one is cancellation, and then it goes from there for the alcohol side. So you can go through and see your first category 1, or excuse me, your first category 3 in a 2-year period, you'd be receiving for a licensee 10 days or $1,650. And this is the amounts there, just are for licensees. They're not the amount for permittees. We would do that separate math for that. Next slide. Wanted to touch a little bit on AVE, age verification equipment, because that is also another kind of option for licensees on the alcohol side. This is specific for first or second minor decoy operation violations within a 2-year period. It's only available once to a licensee. This doesn't fall within that. They can do it every 2 years. They can do it 1 time for the length of their license. How it works is that if a licensee gets their first or second minor decoy violation within a 2-year period, they can choose to purchase age verification equipment in lieu of that first level category 2B sanction. So they don't have to pay the service suspension, they don't have to pay the civil penalty, but they do have to have the age verification equipment in use within a time frame that we specify, and they must then use that age verification equipment going forward on all alcohol sales.
Melanie, how common is it? What percentage of people have age verification equipment at this time?
I don't have I would say it's pretty common that it's, especially with an offset for this, so a lot of people do it.
Okay,
I don't have a number though of a percentage.
okay, thank you.
Next slide. Now looking at marijuana, you'll see there's a lot of similarities here between the alcohol one. So again, available penalties, OLCC may revoke, suspend, restrict, or require a licensee or licensee rep to undergo training or impose a civil penalty, again, in addition to any other penalty. A little bit difference here is written in statute that we only may revoke or cancel a license under a provision of, if somebody violates a provision of these rules or the statutes, when the conduct poses a significant risk to public health and safety. So we have an additional level of having to prove that that conduct there that a licensee did poses a significant risk to public health and safety. In practice also, whenever we're issuing these notices of cancellation, we will also issue an order to destroy any marijuana product that they have if the license is actually canceled. Permittees, similarly, OLCC may suspend, revoke, or impose a civil penalty in addition to any other penalty. The civil penalties on marijuana side are a little bit different here. So it's the statute is 475C405. That one states that it's a $10,000 cap for everybody. So there's, it's per violation. So that's licensees and permittees. There's no separation there of the licensees and permittees there. It's just $10,000. And that's per violation.
Mr. Chair, can I,
Yes.
not only that, you had said it's a little different. That's a lot for the permittees.
Yes.
It seems like the sanctions are a lot stiffer on the
When if,
side.
right, and when we don't act, that's just the statutory, I guess, cap, right? In the rule, we treat it more similarly to
Okay.
the alcohol permittees. So if you go to the next slide, in rule, we compute the civil penalties again the same way, but looking at the number of days in the suspension. And for licensees in rule, we say it's $250 per day. And the exception is 2B violations, the MDOs is $165. And then the permittees, again, we treat them the same as the permittees on the alcohol side and do $25 per day. Packaging and labeling violations are treated differently. There's a lot of different rules when it comes to those, but I will say, just instead of going on a deep dive into that, for each violation of a packaging and labeling, there is a civil penalty by rule of no more than $500 for each day the violation occurs. And there are caps for the amount for a single notice. So there's something like, depending on the type of violations, we can charge no more than $10,000 for the whole total violation.
What are the typical violations for packaging and labeling? What are they doing that we're catching?
Mislabeling things, not putting the correct amount of, the active ingredients in there, things like that. And then again, we also will look at the same way we do with the alcohol side, we must look at the mitigating and aggravating circumstances as well for marijuana. Same way here too, it allows us to do a lesser or greater sanction up to and including revocation, right? So we can also still on this side, we could have a revocation case where we could come off of that because of mitigating circumstances, potentially even aggravate up depending on how serious it is. Also, there's a note in there that it can decrease the penalty, but doesn't decrease the violation or dismiss the violation, right? So we would have a mitigating circumstance. We can bring down the penalty to a low amount, but you're still going to have a category 3 or you're still going to have a category 2 violation. We can also, here written in rule, decrease or increase the sanction to prevent inequity or take into account particular circumstances in a case. And this is also a non-exclusive list. We have a number of them listed in rule that we would have to consider, but then again, we can consider additional ones as well. These are listed by percentages on the marijuana side, so we take a percentage off based on the type of mitigation or aggravation that is there, or add a percentage on. Next slide. Like alcohol, again, we have the categories, those are listed in rule, and then all of the statutory or rule violations would fit into one of these categories based on the type of conduct that is there. And then some examples would be for category 1 violation in the marijuana side, if you fail to retain access or control to your premises and you have marijuana on site, that would be a category 1 violation. A category 2 would be if you fail to retain access or control of your premises, but there's no longer marijuana on site, we have that as a category 2 violation. Also, a category 3 violation is giving marijuana to a visibly intoxicated person. That's a category 3 violation. Those are just some examples there to give you guys.
So if I can hold you there for a second, if it, in order for us to impose a category 1 or category 2 under marijuana, it has to pose a significant threat to the public, correct?
For category 1, it's that significant risk to public health and
Okay.
safety.
And the category 2 would be a threat, maybe not
Present that or substantial likelihood.
substantial threat, but that seems like they've got a lot more room under there than the alcohol side.
What do you,
We have to prove something pretty serious before we can go to category.
before,
1.
yeah, especially in the category 1s, before we have to prove that it's posing that significant risk to public health and
Right,
safety.
which we don't, doesn't seem that strict, or correct me if I'm wrong, on the alcohol side.
No.
I mean, it's looking kind of at it differently, right? That when you look at the category 1s, I mean, we do take, so the liquor liability insurance, if you don't have that, that's considered a category
Right,
1. So
right.
that is a very serious one as well. So
Certainly.
it does take into account serious situations in the alcohol side as well.
Okay, thank you.
Next slide. Here's the violation or the penalty schedule that's in the marijuana rules that we go off of. Again, it's the same way where it counts violations within a 2-year period. And then you go down the chart and look at it. So if you're, first category 3, you're going to have a 10-day suspension or a $2,500 fine. Next slide. Want to talk a little bit about how we, for the options for serving a suspension or paying a civil penalty, how that works out in practice. So normally when, as you can see from all those penalty schedules, there's options there, right? It's the or language. You pay the suspend or pay the penalty or serve the suspension. The way we're practically doing this, when we're issuing the violations, we're putting in our final orders and our notices that the civil penalty is due first. And then if that is not paid, then the licensee must serve a suspension. So here I have examples, some language that is for a licensee would get. It tells them exactly how they would, their option, right? If they choose to make this a penalty, it has to be paid before a certain date. If not, then they'll have to serve a suspension. This, it lets people, in terms of the fairness and equity, it gives them the ability to pick which penalty is the best option for them. It also administratively is easier for us to administer because if somebody doesn't pay, then we can just issue a suspension versus if they don't pay, we have to go and do a lien or take those additional steps. But this allows us for just to do that suspension. So practically, it allows for that easier administration of the penalty.
Melanie, during the suspension period, are they monitored?
Yeah, so what will happen is at the beginning, one of our inspectors will go out and actually post a suspension up on there so everyone knows that this is suspended and they're required to keep that suspension notice up the whole time. And they are monitored by our compliance team. And it is a category 1 violation on both sides if you operate license privileges while you're under suspension.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can
Yes, sir.
is that, thank you. Melanie, this is very detailed and helpful. And so I appreciate it. I have a couple questions. That posting and that suspension, is that for a permittee or a licensee? If you're just serving, is there a posting that says?
We don't
This
post for a
employee-
permittee because we
Okay.
don't have any, because we don't we'd have to post on their person.
Right.
So we have to track that
I was
down.
trying to picture that.
Yeah, it's the posting is for the licensee right there.
Yeah.
That is where it's posted there.
So how do you, I kind of follow, how do you make sure let's say I'm a permittee and I have a suspension, how does the licensee, the employer, how do you make them aware of that so that their employee is not serving, for example?
We don't, as right now, we're sending the notice to the permittee that they're not allowed to. We don't always track where a person works.
Hmm.
So they could be working, we don't track where they're working at. So we don't always know if they're working the same place, if they're working somewhere else. So we don't go and contact the licensee.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So say a permittee doesn't work at the place of business that he or she once did while they got the violation. They go on, they have, they look for employment elsewhere, they find somewhere else. How does that employer know if their service permit's suspended or not?
Or the employer know?
The employer, the licensee, how would the licensee know that, they say that they have a service permit, but it's suspended,
Well, they can,
right?
Ooh, it's a phone a
Yes.
friend, Kiana.
this is a little bit on our
Friends.
licensing side, a little bit on our licensing side, yeah.
Hello, Commissioners, for the record, Shannon Hoffeditz, Director of Marijuana Compliance, Acting Director of Marijuana Licensing. Right now, there is not a way, but I can tell you with the new CAMP program, licensees will be able to log in and get the active status of folks that they are hiring.
There you go.
That's awesome. That's great.
Very good.
And that will go live in the spring, right?
March, I believe.
So-
That's awesome.
Obviously, the licensee won't be penalized, right, if they've hired a permittee who has a suspended license.
Well, we actually haven't we haven't worked on that piece of it yet, but we haven't crossed that category. I don't know what category that would be.
So if somebody is serving without a permit, like, so if you hire, somebody hires somebody and they don't, and they're working and they don't have a permit, that's a category 3 violation for not having a permit.
But if they're
Yeah,
suspended
but that's,
and they are working,
Yeah. That would be a So what is it, you're asking, what is the question you're asking?
exactly that. I mean,
Yeah.
the licensee, in my opinion, shouldn't be penalized if they hire a permittee who has a suspended or defunct, permit, and there's no way of verifying that. And it's not like, do you stamp
Well, they're supposed to check, I will say that the licensees are supposed to check, right, the permit when somebody is hired.
I
Like, do you
understand
have a
that,
verified
but
permit?
what I don't know, and I just don't know, is, so does that permittee have a permit that's stamped to
Nope.
say, oh, yeah, here's my permit, right? So the licensee should not be penalized if they hire a permittee who has a suspended or altered or, defunct permit.
And hopefully the commission would just use discretion on that.
Yeah,
yes,
See,
yes.
right?
We would look at and that's where we can look at each case, right? Each case is different. We need to look at what happened here, what occurred, what was known at the time that they were hiring, what did the employer know? So we would look at each situation.
But the permittee could say, well, I told the person it's gonna be, I'm just saying, I think that should be addressed because Kemp will address it, right?
Yeah.
yes, so
But until
Yes.
then.
yes, what we
Yeah.
do is look at the totality of the circumstances, see what the knowledge of the licensee was. That's what the investigation would look at, and then we make a determination from there. But going forward in CAMP, that does raise a very good question that licensees will have the ability to look into and see, does this person that I'm hiring, do they have a valid service permit or a worker permit? So
Right.
CAMP will address those,
That's great.
Yeah,
issues.
transparency.
yes.
Good.
I just would like to say and go on record, as you've heard me go on record before on this, but I do think that there should be increased penalties on permittees. I think that the current penalty schedule that we have now for licensees, I think it's fine. I don't disagree with anything there. I think it is important to note that employers are responsible for the actions of their employees. But permittees are on the front lines. They're on the front lines of servicing alcohol, right, to all of our bars and restaurants across the state. And the vast majority of them, let me just say, do a great job. They do a great job. Their sole responsibility as it relates to their service permit is to sell it and serve it responsibly and safely. That's their sole responsibility. That's the task at hand, is serve this responsibly. And while I say that the vast majority of them do a great job of this, there are some that are liabilities. And we've seen it up here before. And at times, we've seen gross misconduct liabilities. And often it just seems like, as we look at these things in our stipulated settlement agreements, it looks like the licensee, from a monetary standpoint, they kind of hold the bag. They have more responsibility. The permittee just kind of gets off with more of a nominal civil penalty, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I think as we focus on keeping alcohol out of the hands of minors, public safety, I think as we talk about just public safety as a whole around alcohol, I think it's worth further discussion looking into maybe holding the permittees' feet to the fire a little bit more here from a monetary, the civil penalty standpoint. And I do think that the output of that would be less of these violations.
Mhm.
So,
And we would, and I understand we do have to stay within our statutory guidelines too, right? You're within the, 25 to 500 range
this
too.
is legislature, right? So this is back in further discussion, and if this is something that we want to have a further discussion on. I know that we're bound by statute and there's, right, but, I've said this before, but, they're on the front lines of servicing alcohol to our bars and restaurants, and it just seems like their penalty is nominal. And I think they need to be held a little bit more accountable than where we're holding them to.
The agency could advocate for a change in law though, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I think that's what we're hearing, because we've heard it for a few years now. So I think maybe that's what we need to figure out is just like, do we suggest to the legislature that the OLCC as an agency is requesting this? And, I mean, I think that's what we're on the same page on up here, I guess, but I don't know. It's because, we can't do it in rule, right? Could it be like a rulemaking thing?
You mean to raise the pen, it would have to stay within, no, because we would have to stay within that limit for the alcohol one.
Yeah, so legislative.
So this would be a director,
Yeah.
right? But it could be just more in alignment with, you're right, the marijuana side of things. Because our
Yeah.
marijuana permittees have a little bit more stringent, stricter penalties.
Well, by rule, we gave them the same, if you go back, when we're going over that, if we're doing the 20, we do the same amount as the service permittee, so it's $25 per day.
Okay, I thought I saw somewhere 750 up to 750. It's just a little bit more than the permittee, but I could be wrong. But
Chair, question on the when camp is implemented, will there be a resource to say if a permittee has a pattern of behavior, will we be able to see that? If Kiana hires somebody who on her premise receives a penalty or a violation, and she also works in my establishment, how will I know that if they don't disclose?
Yes, Commissioner Warren, Chair Doherty. Right now, I don't think that the compliance history is available to licensees, but that's something that I can look into and report back to commission on that, if that is something interested.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
yeah, very good question.
Can I ask another,
Right.
that for Melanie, thanks Shannon for stepping in, by the way.
Yeah.
No, you can stay, don't leave. She might need another phone. But, so taking enforcement action and, I think Commissioner Floyd is bringing up, you have a licensee and a permittee and you have different economics. You have a
Sure.
restaurant or a bar. My question is, enforcing against a permittee who might, how do we do that if we're trying to enforce a financial penalty and they fail to pay within your deadline? Tell me about our enforcement action after that. How successful are we when we're going after a financial penalty against someone who arguably is has different type of economic means than a licensee? How effective are we on that?
And I hope I'm answering questions, tell me if we're not, but, we looking at it as, they would get the same option as the licensee as we have on the screen here, so they would be able to pay
Mhm.
or serve a suspension, right? So they can choose to pay that amount, or they would choose to serve the suspension. The suspension amount is the same. Is that what you're getting at?
I see, I think let me ask a better question. Let's say we broke it apart and we said, Ms. Musial, you have to pay $3,000 by this date, and we didn't have a suspension option. So it's just a financial penalty. How do you enforce a financial penalty when you don't have a licensee, you know, like the deeper pocket, I forget how you said it,
Yeah.
the means of a licensee, how do you enforce that financial
We
penalty?
would have to file a lien against them. You'd have to go, we don't do that currently, so I don't know all the steps in that, but I was looking at it, and we'd have to go file a lien against them through I think it's with the courts, the county or circuit court, we do a lien against them.
Garnishment of wages, these things, I
And
mean,
potential, it could go to that, I don't know all the steps yet, but I know the first is to file the lien.
I see. In practice right now, if they don't, I want to make sure I understand, if they
Yeah.
don't pay their penalty with this option by the date, then we suspend them and
Then
say,
they get the
okay,
suspension, yes,
okay, I see.
So that's a suspension for the permittee?
yes. Wait, so it's based on so the permittee, if the permittee doesn't pay their fine, then they get a suspension. If the licensee doesn't pay their fine, the licensee is suspended.
So if the permittee's suspended, how does the next employer know that permittee goes down the block, goes someplace else?
That's what we were just talking about,
Yeah.
like, so under current system, they would not be able
Can't
to
do
check that, but under camp, they would, when that goes live, they would.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, and Chair, I'm mostly just talking about this gross misconduct. I mean, not so much the lower level. What I have a vested interest in is keeping, alcohol out of the hands of minors. So when we're talking about those kind of penalties, when we're talking about, sometimes these gross misconduct ones where you're seeing these bartenders and servers and they're drinking on the job, and that poses a risk to those businesses and the public, at large. That's where I'm really interested in seeing really some strict penalties. And it could even be a civil penalty with some, education,
Education, yeah, yeah, totally.
just as you get a DUI, they make it's really,
Yeah, then you go to classes and things like that.
yeah, it's a little bit more inconvenient.
Did you do that, the education piece?
Well, they have to, not after the penalty, no. They
Before
have
the
to do
penalty?
it, yeah, so every person has a service permit, right, has to go through the service permit classes.
Mhm.
And they get the education before they get the permit.
Yeah,
So
and
who's
Or
overseeing
continuing
the
education.
education?
there's various.
Oh, there's lots of providers that do
Okay.
that, yeah.
All right.
And, Mr. Chair, and our strategic plan, when you look at our 04 to 08 strategic plan, we are going to focus on educating our servers. Rich's team has, we have both the enforcement people, we have public health folks. We've got a manager in charge of making sure we're really prepping our education for that, exactly what Commissioner Floyd's talking about. So that I think is something that we've seen too, as we went through our when Tara brought us through our strategic planning, that rose to the top is, hey, our education needs to be beefed up and focused on. And then I'm thinking we're going into a legislative session they get sworn in January and it starts in February, to put something into a agency legislative proposal. I have to, we've missed our window of when to do that for this session. However, I think that, hearing from this in a public meeting and talking about it and thinking about a recommendation of where the commission wanted to go is what's on my mind. And also, I know that folks listen to these meetings and are thinking about what you're saying in these public meetings, because I think it's important to hear that policy direction of where the commission's going with this. So I think it's good to get it discussed, and then my brain is going to, you know, if it was a statutory change, my mind is going to the schedule that we have to comply with and those things. So
Sure.
I think it's really good to have it on, and I'm glad we're doing this. So we can, I think this is the right first step, is to look at it, see what the mind of the commission is, and go from there. So I appreciate your putting this on.
You bet.
We're good?
Chairman?
Yes.
So, no, I appreciate we're having this conversation because we've kind of danced around it a little bit. What would be curious about, no, I'm not gonna ask you any questions today, I promise. Curious. When we look at this, and I appreciate what Commissioner said about keeping alcohol out of the hands of minors, does raising a penalty do that, or is that the best place? Or is that punitive, like you did it and now you don't do the crime, you can't do the time, right? Does that really prevent it, or does it just punish? So if there are other ways to prevent it, better training, ability to, like, I'm hearing some really good preventative ideas, better training, better way to track. I think those all go together. And then maybe it is punitive. Perhaps, because I don't know that raising the fine will make a difference. I haven't done the research, I haven't looked at the research. I don't know that you have, I'm not gonna ask yet. But does that make sense? What I'm saying is, like, it's a package deal to do what we talk about, which is reduce the number of people underage that are drinking or have access to alcohol. Just a statement, no
Yeah.
questions.
So more, Melanie, we.
I just have I have one more slide.
Okay.
Just one more. This is a quick one, I swear. Just so we're aware of this, we also have these immediate or emergency suspensions that take place. Can occur for both alcohol and marijuana licensees. These are really only used when there's that serious danger to public health and safety, and they're used very, very infrequently, but there are an option there. And the suspension begins when the notice is issued and served on the licensee, so they don't get, normally, right, you get a notice and then you can have your hearing and all that. That doesn't happen in the immediate suspension. The minute we issue it, it is placed on their establishment and they cannot act. They have quicker rights to hearings, obviously, for that as well. But it's really to address those situations that where we need to step in and there's that serious danger, we can't allow them to keep acting like. On the alcohol side, there was, if there was a bar that was having all these multiple problems for a long time, we were trying to work with them, and all of a sudden they had one really bad incident where we felt that we couldn't allow them to stay open, we could do an immediate suspension. Or on the marijuana side, where we find out they're diverting marijuana out of state and they're continuing to do it, we can do an immediate suspension there on those as well. So that is an option there. I just want to let you know that is also one other sanction we have available. And that's all I have for you.
Chair.
Commissioners?
Just more of a comment. So I kind of agree with what I've heard from both commissioners up here. And I can say, speaking with Commissioner Floyd, that I can remember at least one, maybe two situations where throughout the course of 7 or 8 years of being up here that I thought, boy, this guy really needs a bigger penalty. But with that said, in general, I'm worried that for most of the time, I think it gets the job done. And I would just caution that we don't overdo. And I can see that happening some in in the practice that I do with, where in the domestic violence realm particular, where we've seen our laws just get beefed up and beefed up and beefed up. We go from 1 year to 2 years, and sometimes we think that that's going to dissuade people, and it just causes more problems. So I just would caution that, and I don't know the answer to that, but just that we weigh with moderation when we're looking at this, that we don't want to over penalize, or also consider our enforcement procedures on the permittee. With the licensee, we know their address, their location. Permittees move around and are harder to find, and so that's also a problem with trying to enforce that. So just, that would be something I would can say is, in general, it's worked pretty well for a lot of the things we've seen. And so but certainly looking at this and moving forward is something good. So,
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Craig? No, thank you both. Thank you. For the presentation. Clear. And now we have Steve Robbins is going to give us a construction update. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Chair Doherty, members of the commission. For the record, Steve Robbins, Director of Distilled Spirits for OLCC. We're excited to give some updates, especially around some big milestones for the construction project today that have happened this week. Adam, I'll just have you go to the second slide there. We are excited because tomorrow we anticipate getting the guaranteed maximum price submission from the general contractor. Really what that is, just to reiterate what that is it's a proposal that takes into consideration two big buckets of information. One, what do we know in terms of the construction parameters, permitting parameters, all of those things, plus what do we not know but guesses and estimates. And when you put those things together, what that does is it then gives us a real feel for what is the actual anticipated price of this project. We then compare that to the budget for the project. And if in fact the guaranteed maximum price proposal comes forward and it is higher than the budget, then we do what we call value engineering, which is we go back through the project and start to pull things out. As we've moved through this, we're clearly trying to be responsible in the way we approach what we've asked for, but we've also not over-limited ourselves. So I anticipate that the GMP will come in over budget because we haven't really put any huge limits on things yet. We want to see if we could get what we wanted, what would that be? So if in fact that comes back, we already have reviewed value engineering lists of our own with the general contractor. And one of the other things that the general contractor does is they have asked all of their subs, all those subcontractors, to provide value engineering for each of their components. We have not seen those lists yet, so those will be added and it'll provide us a chance to go through and decide, what we're going to pull out. I mean, just as an example, one of those things is, do we paint the interior roof of the warehouse or not, the ceiling? Those are the kinds of things where right now we've said, for the sake of light in the facility, yes, we do. But if it's going to cost a certain amount and we can pull that out and it's not going to change anything operationally, we'll pull that out. So the GMP, then this value engineering component goes forward, then we actually lock it in. It gets signed and it is now the GMP for the project. What that means is everything that's in our contract at that point is targeting that amount. This is where you hear about change orders. At this point, once we have a GMP, anything that is outside of the parameters of what we have contractually becomes a change order, and that adds cost to the project. So we're trying to be as accurate as possible, but we also know that there are what I call those allowances, which are the guesses, the estimates. By far the biggest estimate right now in this project is the material handling system. It's all the racking and it's the conveyance system, which sort of brings me to the second bullet point up there, which is that we passed a huge milestone this week, and that yesterday we executed and signed what was called Early Work Amendment number 2, which was around acquiring the material handling system. So now the general contractor in their contract oversees the purchase and implementation of the material handling system. And what Early Work Amendment 2 did was it released the funds to them to go out and procure it, to get somebody to procure it and procure it. So once we have those pieces of information in place, that will really help us understand whether the initial budgeting for that project was appropriate or not. And it gives us flexibility where if we're able to come in under, that provides us some space for other things like painting the inside of the ceiling in the warehouse or other things. So we're just very excited to have had that done. That has been That has been a process to get that done. So we're excited about that. I've mentioned before that we continue to do what we call geotech testing on the lot, which is we go down and dig holes and pits and try to understand, because we have requirements about runoff on the property and rain runoff, and that 100% of the rain needs to stay on property. And so that happens through aquifers and all kinds of things that I don't really understand. But when you dig holes, that you can see how things flow underground, and that helps us. So we've done some initial digging on that. We've done secondary, and that's led us to a third round of that, and that is being set up right now to go out and do that. It just helps us understand, do we need to dig big pits underground to retain water, or is there enough flow under there where we don't have to do those kinds of things? So this is a good investment for us to do this kind of testing, because when you start to dig big pits on 350,000 square foot warehouses and 25 acres, those are big pits, and that can be expensive. So it's worth the investment to make sure that what we're doing will meet the needs of the community and the property.
Steve,
So,
can I-
yeah.
Was there anything on this property, structures on this property before we took it over? Was there
There were some structures, but no big commercial property or anything like that.
okay, nothing to do with pollution or anything, any factory or anything like that?
EPA, DEQ.
It is a requirement that we do soil sampling for the property.
Okay.
We have had an initial assessment that there is a desire to look a little bit more in one small corner of the property. Right now, we're not overly concerned about it. It sounded like maybe it would require taking 3 feet of soil off a very small portion of the property, but we don't have the details on that yet. But as soon as we know, I'm happy to come back and let you know how that works. But right now, that's not a wholesale concern of ours.
Okay, thank you.
And then I've showed you pictures before. We've basically gone through and we've picked the carpet, the paint, the signs, all that stuff, dozens and dozens of kind of decisions. And Adam, the next slide is just another one of those where it's interior lighting. We're presented with multiple options for the type of lights we would have and the style of them.
Now, do we give our opinion now?
We want this all finished way.
Yeah. One of the things that I've definitely learned in this is many people have many opinions. But we are working through this the best we can. We do typically, the architectural firm has interior designers who are a part of this, and they typically give us decisions. They are also interior designers and want to give us really
Pretty
cool suggestions that may not be within budget for us. So we kind of balance all of that out. But we've just had our teams go through many, many pages like this, which just shows here's the warehouse, here's where the office space is. These are the types of lighting we're looking at in each of those locations. And then it's a matter of picking option 1, 2, or 3 for those things as we go through that process. So a lot more of that to take place, but really this is kind of drawing, I'm not going to say to a close, but the amount of work happening in this space is starting to go down a little bit. What's really going to be the focus for us over the next 2 or 3 weeks is going to be getting that GMP in our hands and going through it line by line. We've actually got some meetings happening in 2 weeks where we do what's called the MEP, which is the, electrical, plumbing, mechanical systems. And we're going to actually do a page by page review of every single outlet, every single plumbing spot in the building, and just make sure that it is exactly where we want it, so that as the contractors and the subcontractors get on board, we're not having to make any changes downstream, that we're able to just lock in what we're doing and move forward. So lots of exciting things. We're feeling like we passed some of these milestones contractually here in this last week, which allows us to free up and really move forward with the stuff that's happening on the ground. So happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Chair.
Commissioner.
Steve, thank you. It's very exciting. So question, is this also going to be environmentally friendly, energetically friendly? Are we using LED? Are we using some sort of rainwater capture system for irrigation for the landscaping outside?
Yeah, Chair Doherty, Commissioner Warren, we have a number of different parameters, sustainability parameters that we're working under. Some of those, for example, we will be having solar on the roof of the warehouse that will run a component of the warehouse.
Nice.
Probably not all of it because it draws a lot of power. We're talking about maybe not having sprinkler systems, but having some bag containment or being able to go out and contain water that is on the property and use that. So there are a whole bunch of different elements to the sustainability, and maybe as a part of updating the commission at some point, we can have somebody come up and actually provide for you what are all those different elements.
Thank you.
That's it.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good progress.
And next we have the retail services. Brian, there you are.
Morning, Chair Doherty, Commissioners.
Good morning.
For the record, Brian Aker, with District Manager for Retail Services, filling in for Paul Rose now. Today we have one item on the agenda for your consideration, and it's the agent appointment for 1120 Park Rose. This is a temporary permanent appointment. John's Family Incorporated has been operating the store since March, and this is for their permanent appointment. So with that being said, I'd like to bring up John's Family Incorporated with the agent representative Keith Johns and his wife Corinne.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
This is a letter of recommendation from the building owner right now.
Welcome. Thank you.
Good.
I didn't add it in the slides.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you.
Of course. Anyone else? Thank you for having us.
Sheriff, would you designate a timekeeper?
Yes.
Well, we could, but we only have one, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanna
go as long as you
want. For the record, my name is Keith Johns, president of Johns Family Inc.
I'm Corinne Johns, secretary of John's Family Inc.
Next slide, please. So I will let ladies go first with this one.
Okay, so I'm Corinne, like I said, and just a little work history for me. I've been a nurse since 2006, which I feel like is one of the most customer-centric jobs you could have in the entire world. So that's 18 years. Along with having another business of my own, we had a convenience store in 2020, and then we just sold that in 24, and then liquor store ownership in 2022. So all of those things have been going on for quite a long time.
I'm Keith. I've been in the retail industry since I was 15. My first job was at a grocery store, and then I moved to Oregon. My first job in Oregon was at Safeway. I moved up into management. Then I switched over to Trader Joe's. Then I kind of went on a different career path. I became a respiratory therapist, kind of followed my wife into the medical field. And then it kind of circled back. We bought this store on MLK in 2020, and it was kind of back to my zone. Like, I just love taking care of people and providing good customer service. And with that became the opportunity to become a liquor agent. And we took that, and we've done well with it. And now here's another opportunity, which is just coming like full circle for us. You know, I think, you know, next slide, please. One thing that we're good at is making things better. Some of the things that we've done, as you see on the left, we took this store over in 2020.
Yeah.
Their annual sales were $292,000. By the time we sold it in 2024, average sales were one difference between these two stores. Another thing we've been making better since we met in 2004. We constantly worked on our marriage, and it's gotten better until now. And same with this liquor store ownership. You know,
Yeah.
you can go to the next slide. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, back with the market is where we like started to actually build our brand. So we've continued everything from the market moving forward. We have, you know, merch and stickers and things, and people are really involved and they love us, so.
It's pretty cool. We'll be in the city and you'll see someone wearing one of our hats.
Yeah,
And it's
In the
not someone that we
airport.
know.
Yeah.
Or people
This is
send us
cool.
pictures. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
We've also learned how to work together because that was one thing like we didn't know
oh Lord.
with this. With this market. We would get in fights and like
Come
we
on,
just
like-
didn't ever work together. So
Yeah,
it was a new thing for
Or
us,
just
but
communication, right?
we've gotten better at that as well.
Yeah.
you know. So I think it's constant learning.
Yeah. Okay, what have we actually done that you could see?
So this store, I don't know if anyone of you have ever been in this store, but it was, the first day when I walked in, Corinne was at the hospital and I texted her, I'm like, oh my God, what did we?
What did we say?
Whoa,
Yeah.
I was up for the challenge, but man, it was a challenge. Just like
Yeah.
that store in MLK, I mean, they're both so similar. I said, I feel like I'm at
Sure.
the market again.
Yeah.
But we've done so much in the short time just to turn it around. We
Mhm.
took everything out the windows. I mean, cleaning was what we had to do. I mean,
Yeah.
I took 4 or 5 loads to the dump with my trailer, it was
Yeah.
just so filthy. But, did that, added new shelving to, there was a wall in there and it.
We have pictures on the next slide. You'll be able to actually visualize
There
that.
was a wall in there. You can go to the next slide, actually. Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a wall right there in the back. Removed that and added shelving to go back because the back room for how small the store was, it was too big. It was just not aesthetically pleasing. It didn't work. The counter was like 24 feet long. I mean, you need a counter like that for a 10,000 foot store. So what we did is took about 12 feet off of that and made it more open. Like I said, we painted, hung up a bunch of LED signs. We changed the hours. They were closed on Sundays. We're open on Sundays now. We're open an hour earlier and an hour later on the other days.
Yeah, just with that little bit of work we did, we added 64 additional feet of shelving.
Yeah.
And increased over 100 products and liquor products. So just by the little stuff that we added.
And we did it
Saw the
all-
opportunity, yeah.
Did this all in a week.
You can go to the next slide, you can see the afters.
So there's the exterior. If you look at that, the
Yeah.
top left.
Yeah, really
Um,
visibility is a huge thing, like, you want people to come in,
Yeah.
like,
you-
that's the front,
You
right?
can see the counter where we cut off on one side, because
Mhm.
the employee was actually,
Yeah,
let me actually talk about this right
Danger.
now. You couldn't get out of there the way it was set
Yeah.
up.
no exit.
Anything were to happen, and I don't know if anyone ever heard about this or saw the video, but a car ran into the building while I was working.
Mhm.
And I was turned around and I was showing the lady what, she wanted to know what whiskey minis we had, and I was showing her, and then all of a sudden, the shelving came crashing down on me. And if I had not taken that section out on the right side of the
Yeah.
counter, I was able to run out the store before, I didn't get touched by a piece of glass or even a piece of liquor. And it was,
But it could have been very,
it could have been really
It could've been
bad.
terrible.
Luckily, I'm still fast. I was able to
Yeah.
get out of there.
Yeah.
But that's one big change that we made. It looks better, but it also worked in a situation where I could have been hurt.
yeah,
What
So
the other thing, they had 2 registers, but one of them wasn't working, so we got the second one working because, we could get those
One
customers
register.
out of there and have people not wait in line.
crazy.
You can go to the next.
Can I,
Oh, yeah.
we gotta go back one.
Uh-oh.
Why, I see Cousin Eddie from
I knew you were
Christmas.
gonna
And I'm like, wait,
I
where does
thought
he
it
fit, where does he fit into this?
I thought it was gonna be like live and that you could see what he was saying, and he said something like, I
So
can't
say,
remember, it was
Go ahead
funny.
and give us Cousin Eddie's line.
He was like, that's it, or you got it, or I don't know, I remember what he said, but it was funny, and I just looked at that picture and I was like, oh god, that's really lame.
Okay.
The words
I
are
just
not there.
I needed to understand where
I
you were
know,
going with
my
that.
bad.
Couldn't
Yeah,
hear you.
good, yeah, good call, good question.
Oh, my God.
Now that one,
You
you
don't know.
can see what he's saying.
Yeah, see, that's
So
great.
these are just some numbers of where you can see as what the store was before we took over.
Yeah.
And then after Black Rose put their stamp on.
Toosh.
And, before we took over, they were down $126,000, March 24 versus March 2023. 1 month after us having the store, we were already up $22,000, April 24 versus April 23. And then you can see it just keeps going up until as of lately, August, we were up 68,000 and ranked 8. Before we took over, ranked 208.
What do you attribute that to? Was it loss shrinkage?
No, I just think that the store, there was no customer service in the store. It was dirty. People didn't want to go in there. It felt gross when you walked
I mean,
in.
we know what we've done, so we could say, like, from the part that we've been there, right?
Sure.
Cleaner, obviously customer service, hours are longer, smells good, more products,
Yeah.
But from when they had it, I mean, we can only mostly
mean-
speculate, right? But
It's, customers come in and they just, wow. And
Yeah.
it's still not like, what it is now is not like what I
no,
feel good about putting
it's a
my
baby
name on
step
yet.
of our brand.
Our Gresham store is, you walk in there and it's a
Treated
wow
good.
factor. You don't get that. I'm still, when someone goes in, I'm like, yes, all right
Yeah.
now, because we haven't, our hands
But
are
we
kind of
can't do
tied.
everything we want to do yet,
Um,
obviously.
So now, I kind of want to highlight our Gresham store right now as well. The Park Road store was kind of low hanging fruit. You can go in there and make little changes and you're going to show some increases. So that, I don't know if that necessarily says a lot about us yet, but the Gresham store has been great since we opened, as far as when you walk in and aesthetically pleasing, the customer service, things like that. Last year,
I wouldn't diminish what you've done.
well,
Thank
thank
you.
you. But
No,
I think this is even more a testament to like how passionate we are for what we do. In August of '23, we were up 120,000 at Black Rose Gresham. August of 2024, we're still showing an increase of 86,000. So it's not like last year we were down and then this year we're up 86,000. We were up last year and we're still going up. So we've been open 2.5 years and
Yeah.
and we're still growing and people are still wanting to come see this fun, new, cool store.
Yeah,
Which
I
is
think that's
awesome.
just the challenge of having, taking over something that's already there and then starting something brand new where people don't know who you are. They don't even know you're there. It's a brand new building for a liquor store. So there's still people like, oh, I didn't even know you were here. Like, we've been here. There's so much signage and we're online, we're on Instagram, we're on Yelp, we're on Google, we're on everything, like constantly, like on the beat, but
Yeah.
it's a challenge.
You can go to the next slide, please. So our plans after appointment, if we get appointed. So when we first took over, I was like, oh, we have to move this thing. Looked at a bunch of spaces, but like, there's just really nothing available yet that's works. That's either it's on the same really bad area or
Yeah.
it's really expensive and it's a busy intersection, but new opportunity kind of came up. There's 1,000 square feet directly next to it that's available, and the owner of the building already said we could have it for a really good price.
Mhm.
Which, at that point, then we could tear the wall down and do a complete remodel and make it look
Yeah.
like our Gresham store. Another thing that just came up within the last week, there's a cat clinic next to that space, and that doctor is retiring. So therefore, that would give us an additional 1,200, so actually an additional 2,200 from what's there, which would make it the same exact size as the Gresham store. And with that, what we would do then, like I said, full remodel, make it look beautiful. We could add more liquor products. We could then get beer and wine in there, tobacco, lottery, other things that draw these customers in. There's a 7-Eleven right there, but that 7-Eleven it's kind of like how the Park Row store was before. So those customers that would typically go there for beer, wine, tobacco, things like that, would come into us. And then, oh, you have liquor products as well. Cool, let's do that. As far as the budget, there's a pretty wide range because we don't know if we're going to get 1,000 square feet or 2,200 square feet. So that's kind of why that you see the range right there. Another opportunity is the liquor sign that's in the top. I would really like to get approval from the building owner to get this huge, nice sign out front because the visibility from the store, from the street is pretty bad. What we did buy one of those flag signs that says liquor on it and put it out at the street for now. I think that helps a little.
What is the reservation with the building owner allowing you to have that big sign that you want, the marquee?
So strip mall owners typically like things to be uniform, and right now it's all these little small box signs. But I think some of my leverage, like, hey, look, I'm willing to sign a longer lease if you allow us to kind of step outside the norm and let us get a bigger sign potentially.
Also, if we had those other two spaces,
That does give us.
would we would have that whole entire.
So there'd be 3 spaces that typically get
Yeah.
3 small signs, maybe we could just get 1 big one, that would be more visible from the street. You can go to the next slide. As far as security, there was no cameras in there when we took over. So we've added 8 cameras for now. I didn't want to get too crazy because, you know, I'm not sure if we would be appointed permanent. And we did put 2 nice flat screens, right? If you're at the checkout and you're helping people, you can still see the couple of the dead spots in the store, which has been helpful. Corinne does a great job about scheduling. She makes sure there's always 2 people at a time, so there's not anyone by themselves. I think that's a good thing for security. Shortening the checkout. My story can tell you that. I mean, just getting her alone could have happened if we wouldn't have did that. If we get appointed, there's more things I would really like to do. I'd like to spend more money on cameras and add more.
But wait a minute, I thought that security cameras were required, no?
The store did have security cameras, but they had a break-in where the wires on the external side of the building were cut, and the former agent didn't get them replaced or repaired.
Not
Is that
surprised
not a
by that.
violation?
It's a marijuana. Marijuana is probably what you're thinking about, where they have to have the cameras.
Is it marijuana? Oh, okay.
There were places where there had been some
Yeah.
at some point, but I don't know when. So
That's a
we added our.
disparity between marijuana and.
Yeah, it's kind of.
So I would definitely add more cameras.
Yeah.
And then the alarm system is old and it only has the sensor for the doors. So if you break a window and go in, there's not a motion sensor in there. So therefore that's something we would add some motion sensor, just update the
Yeah, we
alarm
have
system.
all of that at our other store. Like, it's very secure. Like, we will do all of that.
I did mention that we're gonna, we changed the hours, but that is subject to change. We're still always looking at that. We've changed our hours at the Gresham store twice now.
Yeah.
It was just something, you know, just figure out where the need is. You can go to the next slide. That's, I wish we had more pictures, but that's our Gresham location right there. Yeah, you just gotta come in, come say hi. So you guys can see, and that's recent, that's right now, we have all our.
The Halloween stuff.
Some of the girls went to the dollar store, got all these
yeah.
decorations. Like, can we decorate please? Because they know I'm not gonna do it, so they got it done. It looks great. You can go to the next slide. So in closing, I think you guys can tell like our passion, like just for providing a really cool space for people and being a good representation of the OLCC, because that's something we need to protect. You know, the store like what we took over, someone's gonna walk in, man, you know, what is these state stores? I'd rather get it at Safeway.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You walk in
Yeah.
the store now, it's like, okay, let's keep this going.
Sure. Small business feel, family feel, like we're really close with our employees, like we're really close with our customers, like we've formed friendships. I don't know.
I guarantee, like, one of our taglines is home of the best friends you didn't know you had. And
Yeah.
that started at the market.
Yeah.
And
That's true.
I guarantee there's more hugs that happen in our store in a day that happen in some stores in a year. I mean,
100%.
people, it's just,
True.
it's a cool place. Customer service is literally the thing that sets us apart. Though. Outside of the aesthetics of the store, I think how you treat people.
Yeah.
And the minute someone walks in any of our stores, we say hi to you like we've known you for 20 years. And it's just
Yeah.
like that.
No matter what you look
You know,
like, how much you're spending,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
Which helps, one, deter thieves.
Sure.
Two,
Anyway,
gives
yeah.
good customer service. You know, we're very extremely diverse. We're well branded. We inject ourselves into the community. At Park Rose, we've already gone. We set up a booth at one of the Park Rose Neighborhood Association fairs.
Yeah.
We did that. We've donated to the high school at Park Rose.
Yeah.
In Gresham, I mean, you can see we were voted best liquor store in Gresham.
Cute.
I could go on and on, but I think you guys understand how deep we feel about this. Thank you for the opportunity.
Excellent presentation. Great job and congratulations. I've seen the numbers go up on that store since you guys have been there. It's quite impressive.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Yeah, and the team that scored you is evidently pretty impressed as well. With the scores that you received for the team.
Near perfect.
Yeah. Really?
We haven't seen
Yeah.
any scores like that, so.
What? Yeah, I love the dynamic of the team.
We have fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you have fun. I can tell you have fun.
Yeah.
Commissioners, any other questions?
No. No, I just want to say
Outstanding.
kudos to you. It's the Highland store, right, in Gresham?
Yeah.
Beautiful job that you've done with it. You didn't spare any expense. It's a beautiful, beautiful job. I remember that store. That was, you guys were part of the expansion,
Yes.
correct?
Yep.
In 22?
Yep.
I remember that. It was
It was,
I think we did 8 stores that expansion.
did.
That was a lot, and I was proud to see you guys get that store, because you've done an excellent job. The MLK, the stores, you don't have that anymore.
No, we just
Okay,
sold it.
just sold that.
so that, I was just talking to her last night. I was like, that store has been the reason like we are where we are. Like
Yes.
that little,
It's true. Yes.
if it wasn't for that store, I don't think we would have gotten the opportunity to get the first liquor store. And then selling that store in January,
Yeah.
I think when the temporary opportunity came up, I don't know if we would have had the bandwidth to take it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I,
We're like,
that
what?
little
This is
store,
so meant to be.
yeah.
And like we
it
took
really-
our manager from that location and he's the manager at the Park Rose.
Oh, great.
So,
Great.
you know, just,
Great.
I don't know.
Well,
Just
kudos to
feels good.
you.
Yeah, great job.
That store is a beautiful store. You put your hand in it. You did a lot. That was a beautiful store in the community. And I want to thank you also for your immediate investments on the Park Rose store, because, you know, that was a risk, right?
It really
As
was.
a temporary agent, that's a risk.
Yeah.
And so what you've done
Yeah.
as a temporary agent, thank you
No
for
problem.
that.
That's true.
So I would certainly entertain a motion here,
Chair,
Commissioner.
I move to appoint John's Family Incorporated, Keith Johns, as permanent agent of store number 1120, Portland Park Rose, effective November 1st, 2024.
That's my
That's his
birthday.
Ah! You guys were really one of the most personable presenters.
You know,
I love your energy.
I was like, I'm just gonna do me in this thing.
Yes.
And we're like, babe, let's just be us.
Yeah.
It's fine.
That's what got us where we
It
are.
worked.
Now, listen, had I had the timer on, you'd have been way.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Chair.
Putting timers on you guys.
Yes, I know.
I second the motion.
Then moved and second. Any further discussion?
No, congratulations.
Thank you guys, we appreciate it.
Take the roll, please.
Commissioner Curran,
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Chapon Porter,
Yes.
Commissioner Hayes,
Yes.
Commissioner Miletus,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren,
Yes,
Chair Doherty.
Yes.
congratulations.
Yeah, I got
Congratulations.
Thank you,
Well done.
guys.
Excellent
Thank you,
presentation.
thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
Happy
Thank
birthday.
you. Thanks, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Let's figure out what that quote was and get back to you.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna look at it.
Oh, like,
Oh my God.
So we're going to recess now for stipulated settlement agreements. The commission will temporarily recess its public meeting to discuss proposed stipulated settlement agreements from contested cases under ORS 183-417 and as authorized under ORS 192-6901. We anticipate reconvening in approximately 30 minutes. We're back in session. And Victoria, you're going to tell us a little bit about the stipulated settlements.
Yes, good morning, Chair, good morning, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Victoria Brown. I am a case presenter with the Administrative Hearings Division. So to start off with, we have 3 alcohol stipulated settlements. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Commissioners, any questions?
No.
Okay.
Okay, and then we also have 2 cannabis stipulated settlement agreements.
Anything on those, commissioners?
No.
And finally, we have 2 licensing stipulated settlement agreements.
Any questions? No questions. So in which case, I'll entertain a motion on each of these.
Chair,
Commissioner?
in regards to the alcohol violations, I move to ratify the 3 alcohol stipulated settlement agreements as proposed by staff.
Second?
Moved and second. Any further discussion? Take the roll, please.
Commissioner Curran,
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Chapon Porter,
Yes.
Commissioner Hayes,
Yes.
Commissioner Miletus,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren,
Yes.
Chair Doherty.
Yes. And also entertain a motion for cannabis violation stipulated settlements.
Chair,
Commissioner,
I move to ratify the 2 cannabis stipulated settlement agreements as proposed by staff.
is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
No.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Curran,
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Chapon Porter,
Yes.
Commissioner Hayes,
Yes.
Commissioner Melitas,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren,
Yes.
Chair Doherty.
Yes. Entertain a motion for the licensing stipulated settlement agreements.
Chair,
Commissioner,
I move to ratify the 2 licensing stipulated settlement agreements as proposed by staff.
Second.
moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Negative.
Take the roll, please.
Commissioner Curran,
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Chapon Porter,
Yes.
Commissioner Hayes,
Yes.
Commissioner Melitas,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren,
Yes.
Chair Doherty.
Yes. We have a final action of 2024 hemp implementation package. Entertain a motion there.
Nicole Blodgett. Is Nicole?
She's online. Thank you, Commissioner.
I'm joining virtually today.
Ah,
Go ahead.
oh, okay, we got President Pat in here. Hi, welcome.
Hi. Good morning, Chair Doherty and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Nicole Blase, and I'm the Rules Coordinator for the OLCC. I'm here to present one rulemaking action for your consideration today. That is the final action for the 2024 hemp implementation package. Section 2 of 2024 House Bill 4121 directs the OLCC to develop by rule a methodology to distinguish whether a cannabis plant is marijuana or industrial hemp for purposes of sections 1, 4, 5, and 6 of this 2024 Act. The methodology must include testing criteria and cannabinoid concentrations above which immature or mature cannabis plants are presumptively considered to be marijuana. This is essentially re-implementing Section 41A of 2021 House Bill 3000, which was repealed on January 1st of 2024. In 2021, the OLCC adopted OAR 845-026-4100 to implement that section. OAR 845-026-4100 was repealed on January 2nd of 2024. Following the repeal of the statute it was implementing, Commission staff proposed to re-implement substantially the same provisions that were previously in OAR 845-026-4100. Additionally, Commission staff proposed to adopt or amend other rules related to hemp in order to implement legislation, conform OLCC rule with recent rulemaking by other agencies, and clarify previously implemented rules related to cannabinoid limits and artificially derived cannabinoids. We have staff here to answer any questions, should you have any.
Commissioners?
So did you have one?
I do not.
No question, just comments, and I like that you kind of, in the synopsis, you added the main points that the folks brought up in the comment period. It looks like on the THC, one of the requests was where they wanted it to go from 0.3 to 1, and that, I like that you guys, and this is just, I guess I'm just saying it publicly, is that that was not part of this rulemaking session. That's why it was not addressed. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat just the last part of your question? It sort of froze.
Well,
Chair
I
Melitas.
wanted to kind of go through the comments. Like the first comment somebody had made is I guess they were requesting that OLCC, as part of this rulemaking session, raise it from 0.03 or whatever it is to 1. And the reason that we didn't do that is because it's not part of this rulemaking session. That's part of another one. And so they would need to petition us for rulemaking if that was something they wanted to do.
Chair Doherty, Commissioner Melitas, that is correct. That one particular public comment was not necessarily applicable to this rule package. So we recommended that they propose the rulemaking for where it applies. That's correct. But we did have to include it because it was submitted as part of the public comment for this particular rule package.
No, I understand. And then, and I've got a reason why I'm mentioning this. I'll mention it at the end. But like, and then the second comment I saw was somebody who raised concerns around methods of testing and, but that was an ODA thing that they needed to address with ODA, correct? Where they wanted, or they had issues with the existing testing. Is that what I'm understanding from the reading of it?
Chair Doherty, Commissioner Miletus, that is correct.
Yeah, and I just read those out loud because I just want, it's important. I think people know that we are hearing those comments, and I think it's really good that we're directing them to the appropriate channels, because I think so much of the time concerns with OLCC that maybe legislative or other agencies come here. So thank you for providing those synopsises, and I just wanted to mention those for the record. So,
Thank you, Commissioner Miletus. Glad you got that in there. Any other comments? Nicole, thank you very much. Excellent. I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Sure.
I move to adopt OAR 845-026-4110 effective October 22nd, 2024.
Have a second?
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Any further comments?
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicole. You want to take the roll, please?
Commissioner Curran,
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Tripon Porter,
Yes.
Commissioner Hayes,
Yes.
Commissioner Miletus,
yes.
Commissioner Warren,
Yes.
Chair Doherty.
Yes.
I am so sorry to interrupt. I appreciate you voting on that. For final action, we do have about 7 or 8 other rules as part of this total package that should be on your final action suggested motion form.
I just have one.
I only have the one.
I'll get the binder here.
There's actually 11 rules total as part of this package.
Okay.
Well, it needs to.
Oh,
Nicole, I only had the one.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I will need you to vote on those. So if you can bear with me for one moment, I can put the rules in the chat.
All right, I think we found it, Nicole.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it looks like we would just be adding these. So do we need to
Do
do
a
it?
separate motion?
Yeah, we're just going to add these. Is this a separate motion, Nicole, that we need to, on these?
I believe you,
Can you amend the motion?
Yeah.
Chair, yeah.
Yeah, so we can amend the motion. Yes, Commissioner Doherty.
So I move to amend the prior motion we just made and adopt the additional rules. So that would be OAR 845-026-4110. And the additional ones are going to be, have them here. There. 845-026-0415 and 845-026-4110, and to amend OARs 845-025-1310, 845-025-2700, 845-025-2750, 845-025-5800, 845-025-5815, 845-025-5820, 845-025-5830, and 845-026-0400, effective October 22nd, 2024.
Commissioner Floyd just pointed out that 845-026-0410 is listed twice. Is there a reason?
No, it's not listed.
Is
twice.
that-
I don't think, Commissioner Kern, I don't think you hit that one.
But it's different, it's 0410 and 4110.
Just making sure you hit the 0410.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you say that?
Yeah, so I'll, just to clarify, there are two separate ones that look similar, 845-026-0410 and 845-026-4110,
Thank you.
effective October 22nd, 2024.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Would you call the roll, please?
Thank you very much for doing that.
All right, well, thank you for catching that,
Yes,
Nicole.
thank you.
Appreciate that very much.
Commissioner Kern? Commissioner Floyd?
Yes.
Commissioner Chapon Porter?
Yes.
Commissioner Hayes?
Yes.
Commissioner Miletus?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
Yes.
Chair Doherty?
Yes. And with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.